Welcome back. We're just hanging out around the back of the Red Bull garage here, just waiting for Christian Horner to turn up. But Nico Rosberg was quickest in that session, 3/10 ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. No real surprises, as you've said so often in the past, a bit 2x2, Noah's Arky.
Yeah, it's 3.6 seconds faster than FP1 2 years ago, so it tells you how they're developing these cars. You know, they were quite raw back in 2014, the hybrids. Whether it's any more exciting or not is another matter, and of course we're going to go somewhat faster again next year, 3-4 seconds they say. But it's still, you know, the relentless progress of F1, the power packs, the chassis, the tyres. Obviously the tyres are different to where they were 2 years ago, a grade softer, but nonetheless that's a huge amount of time forward. Yeah, it is, but there's also a huge difference between the Mercedes and nearest challengers, who the Ferraris. Are we expecting it just to be another two-horse race? Well, I think we've seen that since Silverstone and through Budapest. Luckily in the race, the Mercedes don't seem to run and hide quite as they appear in the practice running that they might do. So, you know, blinding lap times, no doubt about that. Therefore, with a bit of time, we thought we'd talk to Christian Horner about what happened in Geneva yesterday. The headline, obviously, Halo, coming out of that, and radio. Let's start with Halo if we could. Christian, there's obviously what we're going to hear a little bit later from the chairman of the GPDA, Alex Wurz, about what he thinks. And what was the team's reasoning behind not having it in 2017?
Well, first of all, a lot of good work has been done, and everybody wants to see safety improve, and of course the safety of the drivers is of paramount importance. I think the feeling with Halo is that there are some benefits, but there's an awful lot of unanswered questions. It's only done a couple of install laps with only a couple of drivers, and I think what it needs is a really thorough, you know, investigation, analysis, testing before we introduce a system like that properly for 2018, ensuring we're not actually introducing anything that could cause some other risks as well.
Is it true that it was unanimous support from the 6 teams present, and if so, are all your drivers moaning at you?
Well, there was no official vote. There was a discussion about it, and I think there's a lot of good work that's going on. It was evaluated versus the screen that we produced, and I think the common consensus in the room is that we've got to do something, but it's got to be well considered, it's got to be well thought out, researched, developed, rather than just bolting something on that we all have very little experience of.
I think, I mean, there was a presentation to the drivers that said it would make it 17% safer. I suppose what you can't legislate for is actually putting it on there, how that would increase likelihood. So, for example, let's take Fernando Alonso flipping over a little earlier in the season. Is that the kind of thing that, you know, you can't actually measure that at this stage?
I think that's the kind of thing. Visibility going up the hill in Eau Rouge is another. You know, would something potentially be deflected off the rim? You know, like Felipe Massa's accident, would that have hit his torso? So there's all those questions that it poses that really need answering before introducing a system like that.
Why did you, out of interest, have to all go to Geneva to have this discussion? Why couldn't it be here in the paddock, as you all be here, more or less?
Well, John Todd's office is in Geneva, Martin.
Not in Paris.
So, yeah.
So you all had to fly over there?
So we all had to go there.
All right, okay.
Okay, just whilst I've got you here, this is what Alex Wurz had to say about things, that very issue, to Craig Slater yesterday.
I guess the question was about Halo,
of course,
which was a safety device, which we can debate the aesthetics. I don't think it's very aesthetic, but I don't question the work of the experts of teams. You know, let's not forget it was developed by teams and the FIA experts themselves. They have started the development on this, I think, in 2010, so it's not just happened overnight. And they presented this solution, the Halo solution, as a workable first go at additional head protection. And in their opinion, it is a better off system than anything we have at the moment. And this is how it was presented to the drivers just a week ago. So I'm surprised of this, seems to me, U-turn to go away from what experts recommend. Already is in the design process of the race cars with the technical guys of the teams, to now step away and delay by 1 year. I'm surprised by that.
Where does this all end, Alex? Because for me the logical conclusion is you've got to take the driver out of the car. If it's dangerous, you know, let's go around at 100 kilometers per hour. I mean, look at those grandstands up there, covered over with green cloth because they haven't sold the seats here. I'm not saying Formula One has to be there. We're not looking for the death of a driver to fill those grandstand seats, but a Formula One car is pretty safe these days, extremely safe. We see massive accidents. Where does it end?
That's a good question. Hopefully it's not ending with the end of someone. I think that you mentioned the grandstands to be empty. We know we have falling numbers globally. I mean, that's the words of the promoter and the owner of the sport himself. He knows the numbers. He said this comment. That's not the fault of Halo or the safety. In actual fact, if you're coming from the 60s, where at every 7th Grand Prix a F1 driver died, to, let's say, the most popular year of Formula One in 2009 with the highest global viewing figures, there is one clear graph. Popularity goes up and is stronger. You've been there, you've been a key factor, like many other drivers. The racing was close, was competitive. But there is another graph, which is the opposite trend, which is injuries and fatalities. It just went down. So I see no correlation in any point that we need to have dangerous racing where drivers are endangered for the popularity. The guys want to see emotions, 0 to 0 moments, people spinning, making mistakes, and a crash, yes, is part of such emotion. But if the safety experts say we can save a life better, I think it takes nothing away from courage. Because if you go through Eau Rouge with 320, you don't think I have this halo thing above me, and therefore I do it flat. Because the impact hurts anyway.
That was Alex speaking to us a little earlier. Christian, do you think it will be on the cars for 2018 then?
I think a system will be on the car for 2018 for sure. Whether it's that exact system is, you know, what the development process has got to be over the next 12 months. It might be a hybrid between the aero screen and the halo solution. So I think the right amount of research, the right amount of money is now going to be committed to researching this properly, and rather than it being bits and pieces by individual teams, to do a complete study, get proper experts involved, because there's a bit of guesswork going on with this, and get the job done properly, that can be introduced not just in Formula One but across all single-seater formulas.
What happens if the FIA pull the safety card out and go, you've got to do it? Or, I guess they can't after yesterday's vote, can they?
I don't think they can. I think we've run out of time after yesterday in terms of, the designers really needed an answer by the end of this month. That's now been postponed to 2018, so 2018 is the earliest it will come. What
about tonight's meeting when the drivers get together? If they go and deliver a legal letter that says, if any of us gets killed next year, we're holding you fully, not you, but you collectively fully responsible.
But how do you protect about that? Driving these cars is unfortunately, dangerous, and they take a risk whenever they get in these cars. And I mean, if you liken it to MotoGP, what do you do? Do you enclose the riders completely and put stabilizers on the bikes? It's a difficult one, and of course, driver safety is of paramount importance. There's always an element of risk driving these cars, but to introduce an immature system that could be introducing other issues that haven't been fully researched, hasn't been tested, only 2 drivers and 1 test driver have done an installation lap with this system. How on earth could you bring a system in like that for all teams and all cars next year?
Fair point.
Okay, so let's move on to team radio. Everything back on the cards now, is it? You can say anything. No holds barred. Anything you like. Right,
great. Apart from the formation lap.
Apart from formation lap, we know that. So clutch, bike, points and engine.
Whatever you like.
Right, so we're expecting some blue language this weekend, which is what we need.
I think it's great. I think the most important thing is not just opening up, but getting rid of this mute button that you could select what the broadcaster can broadcast. And some teams used it an awful lot more than others. And I think now everything's available to you guys. And I think that's, for the fans, for sport, I think that's great. What I'd love to see is the team manager's button for Charlie made open as well. I mean, that would make...
Is that not included then yet?
That's not included yet. I think we should have that. For that? Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and are you pushing for your own bleep machine? Would you be satisfied bleeping
No,
yourself?
We're going to be selling adverts on the radio from now on and asking our driver what the time is continually.
Okay, what else was on there? I think there was standing starts in a wet race, i.e. what happened at Silverstone. What was the general feeling there?
I think, again, a common sense approach that do some formation laps behind the safety car and then form up on the grid and take the start. That's what everybody wants to see. That's part of a Formula One Grand Prix. So I think, again, a sensible conclusion.
Can I just go back to the radio thing? Why couldn't you take a step back so we still filter out driver tuition coaching?
Well, we talked about that, and I talked about it at length. And what is coaching? Where do you draw the line? And you then end up writing lengthy regulations as what is coaching, what isn't. Some teams use, coded messages anyway. So rather than trying to police something like that, just be totally open with it. Okay. Get it all on the table.
Problem is what's broadcast, I suppose, by those putting out the broadcast. If they don't broadcast you coaching it to the drivers, then no one will complain at home.
Well, that's down to the broadcaster, but I think, what's great is that all the dialogue between the car and the pit wall is now available. It's a team sport, and the driver's part of that team. And I think it's actually a positive thing that the fans can hear about that.
But we need to be clear, it's not open to us at Sky.
No.
It's only what we get sent.
It's open to Bernie,
and then
Bernie
the
decides what goes out.
What about track limits? There's some talk of it's going to be free, go where you like, but Charlie tells me absolutely not. It's as at the moment. They had a centre out there at turn 1. It's as last weekend. Quali, you'll get your time lost, 3 warnings in the race, and you'll take a penalty.
Well, that's not what we agreed yesterday. We agreed that yesterday that the drivers should be relaxed, that take the fastest line. Let the drivers use the track.
Really?
I mean, we've seen about 100 incidents at turn 1 today in that first session. Is it dangerous running over there? Is it a bit more spectacular? Yes, the driver's just using the track that's available to him. I think the problem comes is where the tracks are trying to accommodate Formula 1 cars and the MotoGP bikes. You get these runoff areas that the drivers obviously want to use.
Well, at turn 12, I'd go through the tyres and come straight back on at turn 16 then. Where do you draw the line?
No, not like that. But I think, the fastest trajectory around the corner. If a driver wants to use the curb and a bit more, if it's there to use, why not? At some point, it's going to be slower.
Why have a white line, though?
Well, what's the point in having a track? Let's just have a car park. I said, well, let's go to Heathrow and go up and down there.
Yeah, but Martin, when you drove here at Hockenheim, you used all the track you could and a bit more if you could, and you weren't getting constantly penalised or not for that.
But the curbs had ice on the top, they were so high.
Well, put bigger curbs in.
You couldn't, and then the cars fly and then we're back to square one. But and then they start going in a marshal's post or the crowd or something like that. But you've got to define. I think you should have nailed that absolutely down, and the racetrack is the racetrack, and taking, because fans, the bottom line of all of this is what, and this has been fan power, hasn't it?
Yep.
And media power. To get the silly qualifying thing taken away, and you guys were behind that as well. Now we've got the ridiculous radio stuff taken away, and it's because the fans are unhappy and the media are unhappy. But they don't they're confused because their favourite driver gets penalised for going off here, and then somebody else is off everywhere else and doesn't get penalised. They want to see clarity. They want absolute
consistency. You can't have it different at one corner to another. And the discussion yesterday, I brought it up, is that, look, you've got a white line in any other sport. If you're over the white line, that's out.
Yeah.
But,
how about in football if the goal line was sort of varying in width as it went through the goalpost between
Charlie really didn't like that. He didn't want to have an in or out scenario. Apparently the drivers don't like it. So if that's not going to be the case, then let them use what they like.
Yeah, but then there's no skill involved because the less the drivers... No, there's not. The lesser drivers can take the apex speed and 1 in 3 times get it wrong. The great drivers can take that apex speed and not get it wrong and stay within the track limits when they have. You can't move the barriers at Monaco. Why move the white lines in Hockenheim?
Go and have a look down at turn 1 this next session.
I did. I was there yesterday. Do you want to see a photograph?
There were no cars going around yesterday. And look at the great drivers through that turn and what track they're using. They're going to be as efficient as they can and use the grip and the fastest way to get through. And if it's a bit more spectacular because they're using the curb, why not?
Like an old married couple. We love this. Can we just finally, in the wider context of the sport, Christian, this year we've seen, what with qualifying, the new system, reneged on that, went back to the old system, the same with Team Radio. Was it Spa? It was introduced last year, I think, and we've come full circle.
It was Monza the year before, I think,
Yeah, but U-turns, we're getting a few of them in the sport right now. How does that sit with you? How does it sit with... Are we going to keep on happening? Are we keep on contradicting ourselves?
I think it's never great to do a U-turn, but I think what's even worse is to keep going down an avenue that's clearly wrong. So I think sometimes to stick your hand up, like we did with qualifying at the beginning of the year, like with this radio thing, or reserve judgment on track limits. But I think it's the right thing. And I think you've sometimes got to be big enough to say, yeah, we got it wrong. and we're addressing it and putting it right. I mean, can you even remember what the system for qualifying was at the beginning of the year?
I can't remember what my name is half the time, but yeah, I think the thing with this sport is it's just the intricate complexities. It's not like football, it's not like tennis, it's not, it just has, and the goalposts are constantly shifting. Is that one of the biggest challenges that you face? I
think so, and because of the technology that's involved and you know, how hard the boundaries the teams are pushing, there ends up being a lot of regulation, and so I think to points we've become over-regulated. So things like the radio, things like, you know, allowing the drivers to race, things like track limits. You know, I think we have got a little bit over-regulated at times, and it's finding that balance.
The bottom line, the whole foundation of this business is who's the best driver in the world?
Correct.
Who's the fastest driver?
Correct.
We keep going away from that, don't we? We're losing that. We're losing that through the complexity of the cars, through silly regulation, as you absolutely rightly say, and we just got to row it back somehow and quickly.
Yeah. And I think what's in the pipeline for next year, I mean, what we're seeing, the cars are going to look great next year. They're going to be a lot quicker. It's going to sort, you know, the men out from the boys a bit. They're going to be more physical. They're going to reward bravery, you know, and there'll be, I think, a bigger differential between the drivers. So I think actually what's in the pipeline for 2017 actually is pretty exciting.
Great stuff. We'll look forward to that. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Christian. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I know it was a busy period.